I'm the ghost with the most, babe.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Talking Smack, where we talk superheroes, movies, animation, comics, and much, much more. I'm your host, Josh Scar, and joining me, as always, is Alex. Alex, how you doing?
I am doing fantastic. I have recently discovered a new passion in life.
That would be...
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I thought you were going to just go into it. Sorry, I didn't know I needed to ask.
No, it's repertoire. It's like improv. You know, you yes and. I have a new passion. Yes, and what is it? Well, thank you for asking, Josh. My new passion in life is firing little discs at buildings and hoping they topple down. It's called Crossbows and Catapults. It is a remake of an 80s game called Crossbows and Catapults. And it is fantastic because there's nothing more satisfying than going plink, 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 and things fall down. Also, bourbon. and by the way, I love the decor in your room right now.
Is it because Justin's on screen too?
Oh, I won't need to romanticize Justin. We already know what that's like. I'm just mentioning that you have a shield behind your head. It's blue. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's my stealth Captain America shield from Winter Soldier. But we are joined by Justin as well, which I know many people have assumed that we are the same person because we were never in the same room at the same time.
No. Josh, we're on you.
No, we're not on me.
You have the Captain America stealth shield. It's beautiful from Winter Soldier. Let's talk about your hair, which is the Bucky hair. Are you, in fact, going as Bucky, as the Winter Soldier for this Halloween? Please answer the question.
I wish I could. I would love to have a Winter Soldier arm as well, but I don't.
Okay. Justin, are you going as the Winter Soldier?
No, but I am so ready to give you a sobriety test of podcasting right now. So, Alex, can you do one thing for me? Can you say disc again?
Disc?
Do it again.
Disc.
Okay. Say bourbon.
Bourbon.
All right. Say Beetlejuice.
No. 3 times.
Damn. Almost had
Alex,
him.
you know what I just noticed? Your braces are off.
They are off. I got them off on Tuesday, and now I have a retainer. And so I have retainers from tops and bottoms. I have to wear them when I'm not eating or drinking anything. So I'm actually back to water now, which is actually really depressing.
Especially after you've had, what was it you were drinking earlier?
We were playing Crossbows and Catapults.
That's not drinking. What
and
were
bourbon.
you drinking?
Let me see. The 1792, the Frog Toad, E.H. Taylor. That was really good. Bottle of wine, some cherry wine from Door County. Did I mention bourbon?
So, dear listener, if you can't tell, we're playing a slow game here because before we started recording, Alex mentioned that he topped off his bourbon, or he finished off his bourbon, I should say. We're playing this nice and slow, just like a good bourbon, sipping on a good bourbon. We're going to play this nice and slow so that is time to kick in. And we're going to just see what happens with Alex as time progresses here this evening. But while we're procrastinating here, Justin, welcome back.
So, always a pleasure. I was excited about this episode. Now I'm even more excited that Alex is going to be completely sloshed by the 10-minute mark. So, which this
Almost
should have
halfway
turned
there already.
We should have stalled with like a table read of the original Beetlejuice and just see how things just go downhill.
Yeah. So Justin, please remind everyone where they can find you and what podcast you are part of. Because I forgot to ask you before we started recording. Is there a specific space movie episode that is releasing soonish? Or maybe potentially has already released at time of release of this episode this coming Wednesday?
So, yeah, well, first you can check Josh's first appearance and our first guest at Back to the Balcony, where we had him pick a Star Trek movie because me and Antonio couldn't decide. So, and it was a brilliant pick and it was a unique pick. So we can't wait. That episode releases here soon. And you can also find me on my primary show, The Movie Wire, and you can listen to me anywhere you listen to podcasts. So both shows are fantastic, and I'm not biased at all. I listen to myself frequently. I fall asleep to my own voice.
Which, I mean, why wouldn't you with a voice like that?
You're going to have nightmares.
Okay. So just to play devil's advocate here, Josh is going to be on. It's an unusual Star Trek pick. Is it Star Trek Into Darkness, which is well after the show ended?
Again,
You figured me out, Alex.
Again, it has to fall within Siskel and Ebert's realm, not Ebert and Roper's,
Oh.
but Siskel and Ebert. So it has to fall
Okay.
within that realm. So anything before 1999.
Oh, okay.
Spoiler alert, it's Return of the Jedi.
Oh, that is unusual.
No, it was a good time being on. I thought Antonio said it was going to be 3 weeks. I think it's been 3 weeks since we recorded. So I don't know if the episode has come out by now. I will put the episode in the episode description. Otherwise, it'll be next week or the week after, whenever it releases. You'll have a link in our episode description, plus obviously sharing on social medias. But before we do anything, obviously we're here to talk about Beetlejuice. But we need to hear from our friend Caesar over at the No on 15 Allcast. We'll be right back.
I'm 15. No, I'm 15. No, I'm 15. No, I'm 15.
So, what's our show about? It's about some dudes talking about movies, just like this.
With Goofy screaming with them.
So like, so you're talking that they should have replaced it like with a Tom and Jerry scream or something like that?
Or you might hear something like this.
Oh my gosh. That whole movie, waiting to see what happens with Blanca, is like the most aggravating thing in that film.
But for the most part, we talk movies from the 80s, 90s, and today. And if you grace us with your ear time, you might hear one of these 30-second gems like this.
Yeah, I was gonna say I did not get a
watch
chance to watch this one this week.
Give it to him anyways.
Let
Let
it
him
go.
We're gonna give it to Ebert anyway. You ready?
I'm gonna give you the 30-second review of Tron Uprising.
All right. Start the clock and then.
So give us a shot and listen to the No on 15 Allcast, wherever you listen to your podcasts.
No, I'm 15.
And we are back. We are here to talk Beetlejuice, the Lego sequel to 1988's Beetlejuice. I will not be mincing words. I have not been looking forward to this movie. I've been shitting on it ever since it was announced and confirmed, and Alex has been sharing all the behind-the-scenes stuff. Whatever has come out about it, he's been sending it to me, and I'm just like, nope, don't like that. And oh man, do I have thoughts. But first and foremost, we got to share a little bit about the story here. Basically, Lydia has gone off to become a ghost whisperer, and she's monetizing it, making money. And like, this is all stuff that has happened in between the films. She just now can see ghosts everywhere. She has an estranged daughter. She is not divorced, or is she? I don't even remember. She had a baby daddy at the very least, and he died mysteriously. Is he alive? Is he dead? He's dead. They try to make it like a mystery for like 5 seconds. Delia is doing weird art stuff still, and then we find out that Lydia is also dating. Who the fuck is Justin Theroux, and why do I give a shit about him?
Rory.
I know who he is
Oh,
in the movie.
okay.
I'm just asking in general because I've seen people make big deals out of Justin Theroux. I know he was in The Last Jedi. He was the red peplum dude that was supposed to be the insider. Then they met DJ and whatever. But like, I don't know who the fuck this guy is. And I'm sorry for getting a little indignant here, but I don't know who he is. Like, why does anyone care who this guy is? And why is he in movies? And why is it a big deal?
He's one of those names that literally are pumped on social media, pumped online, and it's very familiar, but at the same time, I would challenge anybody that mentions his name to list 3 movies he's been in, because he's one of those that he's not really memorable in anything that he does. So I'm with you, Josh, on it 100%.
He has a nothing face. Like, I couldn't even tell you that I'd seen him in anything. I only knew the name, and I remember people being psyched that he had some kind of cameo in a Star Wars movie. And I was like, who is he? I don't know who this guy is. And like, he was married to Jennifer Aniston for a while, wasn't he? Nods on a podcast.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm used to video.
Lydia is dating / engaged to Justin Theroux, who the hell knows who the hell he is. And Beetlejuice now is running a customer service agency for the newly dead to try and exorcise the living from haunted houses. Danny DeVito accidentally releases Sally from the Nightmare Before Christmas, and she's after Beetlejuice, and things ensue. I'm not even going to say hijinks. Like, I don't even know what the hell this movie is. I I did not have fun with this movie at all, but we'll get more into my thoughts as we get into spoilers. But let's get into non-spoiler talks. Justin, as the guest, let's start with you. Where did you end up on this movie in a non-spoiler thoughts?
So I've seen this movie now twice. My first viewing was the pre-screenings on Wednesday, and walking out of it, I think I messaged you guys right away. It went from hate to like to love to hate to like to love, and to what in the actual fuck did I just watch? But to its credit, the reason I went to a second viewing, because I thought I had this movie pegged, and we're going to talk about it, bloated subplots, characters that just seem pointless. We have a lot of elements here that just aren't necessary. So many things that aren't necessary. But this movie lingered with me for 2 days roughly, until I had to really just go and see it again, because I couldn't get it out of my head. The things that I disliked started to make sense. The things that I really were confused on why they would insert this, because it's so bloated, entertained. Am I saying it's a great movie? Is it better than the original? Hell no. If anybody says this is better than the original, they need to stop watching movies altogether and just stick to sitcoms. But this does have some push elements to me that really did make me have a good time, even though it is so, again, bloated of just like 3 different ideas with the 3 different writers, putting everything into a pot, shaking it up, and pleasing everybody to have their own ideas. You can tell there's multiple directions in this movie, but I guess my statement at the end that I'm going to say in my review is it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, did it entertain? It did. But that's if you can separate yourself to the expectations, and that's the danger of this movie, is having that high expectation. This is one of the first sequels that really did kind of separate me, but it did have issues that we'll get into. But it did separate me to at least entertain me to a certain level.
Alex, how about you?
As the credits rolled, I was like, I enjoyed this. This was fun. I have questions. I have uncertainties around what is going on. But over the past 7 hours, more and more questions have hit the forefront of my mind that make this movie lacking in a fulfilling way. I feel like the writers have pinched a lot of Beetlejuice ideas from the cartoon, which is not a bad thing. The cartoon is fun. It is weird. It's fantastic. They also pitched quite a bit from the musical, which I love the musical. The musical is just fantastic. The songs are catchy. The direction is fantastic. Alex Brightman owns that role. The changes that they made. But during the course of the movie, as characters entered and disappeared and then came back, and then random resolutions, when you have a movie that, like Beetlejuice, which it's not a perfect movie. It is a fun movie. It is a cute movie. It definitely, as a child, definitely began the crush that I still harbor for Winona Ryder. And, Michael Keaton, who was coming off of movies like Batman, Beetlejuice, the criminally underrated Johnny Dangerously, which I challenge everyone to watch that movie and not go, God damn, why wasn't that a massive hit? Why is that kind of like this forgotten thing that just kind of exists on the peripheral? This movie, I believe that Tim Burton definitely sparked a catalyst for him. But when you have an utterly just forgettable rehash of a soundtrack, I swear Danny Elfman just walked into the studio, said, let's move a few bars around from the original Beetlejuice, and walked out of the studio, because I can't remember a single piece of music that is not Beetlejuice lip syncing to a pop song.
I legitimately don't even know if they played the Beetlejuice theme song besides the intro.
Correct.
You hit the nail on the head there. Like it's Danny Elfman in his most stereotypical Danny Elfman, but also in his most forgettable. Like, I could not mention if and or when that theme song hit beyond the opening credits. And also I realized that Beetlejuice and Ghostbusters uses the same font as well as the same backlight in their opening credits, which is weird.
Yup. if I'm going to grade Beetlejuice as A tier foundational kernel of my childhood, which it certainly is, I'm the right age for it. I am the right kind of like gothy Anne Rice child eventually I grew up into. That if that's an A minus A solid, not an A plus, not an A. This is batting at a B minus, maybe C plus. It is not going to ruin your childhood. It is not, just dragging the corpse across the floor. And what has it done? Oh, dear God. It has moments of brilliance, but it definitely appears that 3 different writers took a pass at it. And I imagine that there is some kind of work print cut that is about 25 minutes longer. That is so much better than what we got. Because this is a brisk, like, hour 40, which is fine. For a movie like this, sure, you want to aim for that. But when you have this many plots and this many people, Danny DeVito randomly showing up, and underserved subplots, and questions that should be asked immediately when characters are introduced and leave, and it just doesn't hit those highs.
I was listening to Talks from Superheroes episode this week where they talked about, or last week now, where they went back and watched the original Beetlejuice, and they made a really great point about how the first Beetlejuice, it's almost like just a stitched together series of sketch comedy bits. Once you get past the accident, it just becomes a rolling just collection of 7-minute skits that all just punctuate, and then you move on to the next thing, and then the next thing happens, and then the next thing happens. Whereas with this one, I chuckled like maybe twice, but then I immediately forgot what I laughed at. This one, it's almost like it's weighed down by trying not to be a direct legacy sequel, which usually that just means you're hitting the same beats. Like leaving the theater, the number one thing I could think of is like, it's not Mary Poppins Returns. Like Mary Poppins Returns was like, okay, here's the street chalk sequence. Here's the Chim Chimney Cheru sequence. Here's this sequence. Here's the Step in Time sequence. Like they were just hitting beats while following a similar pattern. This is to the movie's credit, it is its own thing. It is not trying to recreate magic from Beetlejuice. It's trying to tell a new story. It's not trying to retell or recapture anything other than like bringing back these 30-year-old characters. But they don't do it in an interesting way. The conceit of this movie is Lydia is kind of boxed in by this evil, maniacal boyfriend producer guy, and it's estranged her from her daughter, and she's gotten closer, but it doesn't affect anything she has going on with her primary relationships with Delia. And then Beetlejuice shenanigans happen, but none of them go beyond like a surface level plot point, and nothing is extraordinarily interesting because they never dive into anything. Like you guys are saying, if there's like 15, 20 extra minutes of this movie, maybe it would be interesting, but everything just, we set it up, we have a middle part, we pay it off. No real true confirmation or resolution to it. We just say we've paid it off and we're moving on because we've got more things to resolve because we set up so many plot points. And none of it rested long enough for it to happen because, like, I mean, you have in Beetlejuice, you have moments where, like, when Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis's character end up in the model for the first time, and you have Beetlejuice just like running around being manic and like changing costumes constantly and just being enigmatic and insane, where in this movie he's just constantly just like laying back in his manager's chair in his classic suit and just being like, man, I tell you, when I have a moment to do something, I'm gonna do it. And they never give him a moment to do anything, like because everyone already knows what's happening. Like I said, the idea behind the first movie and the way it's structured, where you have the newly dead trying to figure out how to be dead and what it means to be dead and haunting a house, that is extraordinarily interesting. That's an amazing perspective and point of view. This movie is living people are sad because someone they love died, and we just happen to be in the same house and things happen, and now the movie's happening. Like, nothing extraordinary really happens until the end of the movie, really.
So I think the main problem with this, and I'm going to go into my kind of problems with the film, is one, this isn't a Tim Burton movie. If you showed this to me just right off the bat, it doesn't have that term Tim Burton feel because it is so cartoonish and the intent is to be cartoonish. We have, and Josh, you touched on it brilliantly, is we look at a lot of these characters and we look at a lot of these elements to it. That's the telling of a story. The first one that what made that special to me is it was simplistic enough with odd elements. You had this married couple that had some great chemistry that went in, wanted their house back. That was it. Here, it is in so many directions that really frustrate me. And the problem that I say that it's not a Tim Burton feel is because it's so claustrophobic. There is no sense of wonder that you were talking about because even when we get into the afterlife, you have so many kind of up close shots, some medium pan shots. Even when we go to the original Beetlejuice, even in a manager's office, it was open windows that you can see the outside world of what's going on in that office. Here, even when we have the memorable Danny DeVito hallway scene, it is so enclosed. This is the afterlife of infinity. Why is it so shut off? And why are we not focusing on a lot of these wonderments of imaginary? So that is my frustration with it, is because I felt claustrophobic in the scenic. And Mark Scruton, who did the production design, who really doesn't have experience in the Tim Burton world with Wonder Woman 1984 or Ready Player One, this should have been the main aspect of Curiosity to really take onto the original one, to create a world to support the curiosity of our characters. Because if we are already familiar with our Beetlejuice, our Winona Ryder, and all these characters, then make a world that's interesting to really counteract these characters we're already familiar with. That is my biggest issue with it. My second issue with it is it takes away the very borderline taboo terror innocence, where it really goes to the cheat factor of gore. This is a very much more gory Beetlejuice from the I won't get into spoilers, we'll talk about it. But there's a certain scene where they had a blood splatter thing towards the climax. And I'm like, why? What is the point to really add that 0.5 seconds of blood splatter that really does give a forte of credibility to this film? So there's that. And then the last thing I would talk about is, one, this would have been a much better movie if it focused on one storyline. And I get William Dafoe in this movie is fun. It's a fun character, but there is a lot more interesting of intrigue without copying the first one to really go off of that storyline. And we're talking about another character's love interest, if I would put it subtly for right now. So there is some elements here that they could have gone in the direction, but I think this was intended to be, again, just a cartoon that just sets itself higher than the standard of another sequel during the summer to really bring in box office dollars. And to me, I think it's successful in that, but at the same time, it's disappointing in that, because it's been a while since we've seen a good Tim Burton film, and I was really hoping for that element, but I can see why he's trying to kind of change the course. But I think he really didn't have a lot of control in this movie, because you can really tell as we get into the climax that he really didn't have any control.
Yeah, I agree. I think the office in the Matrix felt bigger than the afterlife in this movie. Like, I had the thought towards the end where Monica Bellucci's character just misses Beetlejuice, and I'm like, how small is this place? Like, is there only like 3 hallways and the one office building and then a Willem Dafoe's office? Like, where is everyone going that they just can't find each other, because they just happen to keep missing each other everywhere else?
Now, I do have, I think, a non-general spoiler that I would like to ask the both of you to see if you understood this as well as I did. Catherine O'Hara is the MVP of this, right? Because she is giving her all, and it's fantastic.
I thought she was just playing Schitt's Creek again.
Yeah.
Like, it's in sequence with Beetlejuice. Like, it's there, but it also still feels very Schitt's Creek too. Like, it feels like an extension to me.
No. Schitt's Creek would be an extension of Beetlejuice.
You asked my opinion, man. You can't tell me I'm wrong.
So it's a step down from Schitt's Creek, but I was getting the vibes. But you can tell they were really shooting for the written dialogue to really kind of give that emotional piece of it, to really have her matter and make her more likable compared to the first movie. But I think it's hard to break that habit when you spend so much time in a character study to really have this portrayal. And at times you can really see it kind of seep through in this performance, and especially in the first act. But to me, but at the same time, to be fair, it is hard to see her in this role directly after Schitt's Creek, because that's it's almost like the same character almost. And it shows her talent that she really has to try and separate herself and remember the portrayal she did from the 80s. So I'll give her credit for O'Hare to really take this piece of challenging material and this character and really try and make it her own. Is it successful? I'd say it's okay, but I think it's reminiscent of Schitt's Creek. I would agree.
Yeah, I think most everyone turns in an okay performance. Like, I don't know what the direction was like in any of this, but like Winona Ryder felt very flat, which, Alex, I know this is one of your least favorite tropes, where we have to return our protagonist to their status quo one way or another by tearing them down or whatever. I remember when we saw the first trailer, you were talking about why is Lydia back in her goth makeup and goth hair? Because at the end of the first movie, she was happy-go-lucky. She found her place. She found her people. And it seems like they used her newfound spirit medium powers as a way to make her go back to the uneven bangs and the beehive bun and everything like that. Which, I mean, at least they didn't just go, well, she's Lydia. She just went back to being that way after so long. I don't know. It still didn't quite feel right. And I never really understood her emotion towards anything. Like we talked about her relationship with Justin Theroux's character, where she's supposed to kind of be like, I like him. He helps me out. He keeps me around. But nothing in her performance makes me think she actually likes him. It seems more like she's annoyed by him, but she keeps him around because she thinks he needs her. But that doesn't mesh with who she's supposed to be either.
No, that bothered me very much so, because this movie shows the flashbacks to when she was with her husband and others before he passed away and other stuff, and she has the same hair, same look, all that crap. So the movie does a disservice by basically ignoring the last 10 minutes of the first movie to again draw the character into this other place, which also continuity wise within the movie doesn't make sense, because the movie suggests that she's taking medication so she doesn't see spirits because she sees Beetlejuice, but she says that she doesn't see hasn't been seeing Beetlejuice up until recently, the last 2 weeks or so. So why is she taking medication to nullify that she already has? And then Rory says something along the lines of, oh, this is the last time I dig them out of the trash, the sink, and this other stuff, suggesting that they've hit this spot before. So they take away her agency. They take away her independent spirit. Like the first movie, she was snarky. She was kind of cranky. She was smarter than Beetlejuice. She was outplaying him until she reached a point where she's like, screw it, I need to use him. And then even then had a backup plan and hope the Matlins did something. This movie rips that all away to make her a fairly passive, weak heroine who needs to be saved from herself, which I think is a massive disservice to the original character, but also to give that agency all to her daughter, Astrid, who literally is the same character, snarky, bitchy, goth, who knows better than everyone, etc., etc. And I absolutely was appalled by what they did to Lydia, especially since they drew so much inspiration from the cartoon and from the play, because the play makes that Lydia even smarter and more aggressive with what she wants and how she plays Beetlejuice than the Lydia from the original show. So I feel really bad that this is where we got the character, and this is what the character was given to, because it almost seems like she's just a passive entity to float around, to be shit on by literally everyone. Even the Catherine Harris character is just like, whatever happened to that bitchy goth girl that I used to like? It's like, you didn't like her, but now you're saying you like that version better than what we got in front of us, which I can kind of agree.
And it's not a play, Alex. It's a musical. Get it right.
Based on Hollywood, it would be considered a play.
Yeah, true.
We can't talk about musicals.
Well, and it's not going to be a spoiler because you see it in the trailer, because this could have been solved with the Lydia character by one thing: not being so determined to get Jeffrey Jones' character in this movie. We could have easily had him set the pretense that he died way earlier, prior to what the actions of the movie have. Could have described Lydia's trauma, because we even get the line in the movie that he's the one normal, he's the one that held the family together. That line could have still been delivered with some context of the past, that he passed away years ago before any of this happened. And that could have described a lot of this trauma that this family faces. And it also would have saved a lot of the pacing problems we had with spending so much time in this scenario that really doesn't matter, other than a setup of a punchline that we'll get into, that just really kind of wasn't more of an annoyance than anything. Because this one would have really taken this Lydia character and made it so she could have developed. We could have focused more time on the pills, the jackass potential stepfather, whatever it may be. We could have focused on this relationship a little bit more to really have some buy-in, because we're spoon-fed of this relationship, and it's not coming from Lydia. It's coming from Astrid. That's kind of giving us these context clues of what this guy is about. And when we get into it, we really don't know who this guy is about until we get a little bit further into the movie. But as we're going on this journey, it's almost a frustrating piece of it that we don't have enough out of these characters, because again, we have all these descriptions of the characters, we have all these subplots. We don't have a very genuine focus on what this movie wants to be and what it wants to focus on, other than giving fan service and giving an entertainment aspect of comedy and the gross factor.
All right, so let's move into spoilers here, but before we do, let's give our Talking Smack ratings. Justin, I'll let you head out first. Must see or pass?
This one I've been on the fence on. I've been back and forth, but at the end of the day, it's all about, will you have a fun time at the movies? Does the movie have flaws? 100%, absolutely. Frustrations? Absolutely. But I did have a good time with it, and it could have gone straight down the toilet, given the high expectations of this movie. So just for the high expectations, I think it did a good fan service on the entertainment level. I'm going to say a must-see.
Alex, how about you?
I had fun, but about 35 seconds into the credits, I was like, wait a second. So, I mean, it was fun. It was fun seeing Michael Keaton do his thing. It was fun seeing Catherine O'Hara. I enjoyed the oddities of the afterlife. I mean, we haven't even mentioned Willem Dafoe. He was enjoyable, but absolutely forgettable. When
his makeup was the best part of his role.
Yes. Children, there's a thing called television, and they air things, and you don't get to decide what happens. They air at certain times, and there's commercials. Now, you'll see before the movie pops up, it says edited for commercial interruption or some shit like that. So they edit the movies down a little bit to fit within a chosen time span. When you watch this movie, Willem Dafoe and Monica Bellucci will not be in this movie at all. The TV edit will probably be the superior version of this damn film.
Man, remember when they used to add stuff into movies to make them fit into the TV time slots?
But Jurassic Park, they show the part where she plucks off the leaf that's growing in the distance and then looks at it, and that's why when the truck shows up to be the brontosaurus scene where she's looking at it, where she got the leaf, it says like, this shouldn't be here. When Alan Grant grabs her head, the TV version shows that scene.
That's drove me nuts over the years, because I know I've seen that scene and nobody believes me.
My wife also has the exact same problem, Justin. And the problem with it is that that scene is in the first trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that scene's in the first, because they hide like all the dinosaur reveals. But also in the TV edit, they keep that scene in.
Thank you, Alex.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Josh?
This is a pass. I'm a wet blanket for this movie. This is a hard pass for me.
Hard pass.
I would not recommend anyone go see this movie. I don't think it needs to be seen. I don't think it adds anything to the Beetlejuice mythos.
Oh, no.
If you want to enjoy Beetlejuice, watch the movie from 1988. Watch the animated series produced by our friend Michael Hirsch, who we interviewed a while ago.
Why are you flipping off the camera, Josh?
Because I basically needed to see this movie so I could make everyone else mad at me. But yeah, I did not. Like I already said, I did not have fun with this movie. There are moments that I think there are 2 moments where I laughed, but again, I don't remember what they are. Usually I'll remember, but I could not tell you what they are. I do think Willem Dafoe's sequences are the most fun. His makeup, I think, is the most memorable. But even with Beetlejuice, like there's nothing memorable with that role in this time around. Like the first movie, which spoiler alert, it's the end credits thing where he's like the first time he meets Adam and Barbara, he's like, after they do the home thing, and he's like, hey, where'd you guys go? Come on. And he's just like going through so many different things where he's like, you're working with a professional here, where he just goes bananas. Like to borrow a Batman 89 quote, he goes nuts. He gets nuts. And there's nothing like that in this movie. There's nothing memorable about Beetlejuice beyond the aesthetic, in my opinion, for this movie. And there's nothing memorable about anything else in this movie. Again, maybe besides the Willem Dafoe makeup. But it is a hard pass for me. We're going to move into spoilers here to talk a little bit more about some of these things. But let's start with the one thing I will give this movie credit for that I remember. And that is the book for Handsome Boy. I don't know. Jenna Ortega's thing is she falls for handsome boys who are actually the villain. She did it in Wednesday. She's doing it here. The one thing I will give this movie credit for is when she finds the book for the recently deceased, the guidebook for the recently deceased or whatever, in his room. And like, there's clearly something going on in his family's house. Like there's little hints. The first time you don't see the parents' faces, he just rushes her upstairs. Like there's no big deal going on. But she finds the book in his room, and he's like, oh, I found it at a garage sale. And it's like, oh, okay. Otho probably sold it or something. And that's a nice little Easter egg. I get that. That makes sense. And then, spoiler alert, he's actually dead. He murdered his parents and then died while trying to escape the police.
My wife and my best friend and I were talking about the movie afterwards. He appears after she crashes her bicycle and like bonks her head, and he's in a treehouse. And my wife apparently immediately to herself went, yeah, he's dead. And then as they enter the house, they pass by the husband and wife who don't really interact. He's like, oh yeah, my mom's always cooking. My dad doesn't leave that room or something like that. And they get up to the room, and he has nothing but 90s vintage stuff and vinyl and all kinds of crap. And his room is old.
There's obvious hints all around.
Yeah. That's when like myself and our best friend was just like, uh-huh. And then apparently my wife muttered under her breath, about time you guys caught up. Now, Astrid Jenna Ortega does not believe her mom, who has a show called Ghost House, can see ghosts, interact with ghosts, any of that stuff. The problem that I have with that as a foundational piece of their relationship is twofold. One, she doesn't believe it because, she says something along the lines of, you can see every ghost in the world, but you can't see Dad, who's dead, died in the Amazon. Now, when they find Dad, he offhandedly mentions, I know you can't see me, but I visit you all the time. Now, anyone with a bit of intelligence would say, why can't I see you? She can see all ghosts but him. That answers the point that the daughter has. That answers an issue that that Lydia has. Why does nobody ask that question? Why does that not come up? Why does he not explain that as part of it?
They have to do other things. There are more important things that need to be
resolved. No, there's fucking not.
There's not. But the movie decides that there are more things that need to be resolved.
Now, secondary point to that has been a point of contention for fucking ever. There are 2 other people in this movie that could have explained that their mother isn't a con artist. One is Catherine O'Hara's character. The other is the grandfather who just died. Either one of them hearing the daughter, knowing the daughter hates the mother and believes all this crap, because they even acknowledge it, mentioning, you guys don't talk blah, 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 we know blah, blah, blah. Any one of them at any point could have said, yeah, no, your mom can't see ghosts because we went through this thing happened and was real. Especially when they acknowledge that in the movie with the whole, like, when Lydia shows Delia, hey, it looks like he's back, and she's like, that thing tried to destroy our life, and blah, 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 blah. It's like, I hate plot contrivances that are built upon a lack of discussion, that if it's between two characters, that is a known movie thing, that is fine. The miscommunication, the whole like, well, I have something to send you. We'll have something more important. We'll get to your thing eventually. Or the whole like, we just refer to the bad guy, the incident, the thing as he or she or it or whatever, and don't actually say a name when you're talking about two different people. Whatever, that's fine. But when you have a third, fourth, fifth party right there who can say to you, no, that's actually wrong. I saw that. When it's sitting right there, that drives me nuts, because it's just like, does nobody in this family talk? You have text, you have phones. They show themselves ignoring each other's text messages, but reading them, but ignoring them, ignoring phone calls, all this crap. You can literally just go, oh yeah, your mom. Yeah, no, that's actually all true. We can actually back all that up. Or even the kid, turns out to be an asshole love interest who says like, oh, the ghost house. Did no one ask why it's called the ghost house? Does Astrid not say anything regarding that? They never resolve or confirm that point, and it drives me nuts because that just diminishes the intelligence of everybody in the movie and diminishes the character's value and the story, because now we are, as an audience, just being dragged along through the paces to get to an ending that is unsatisfactory because we resolved it hours ago. And I hate that.
Well, I'm going to go on the defense here a little bit, because when you have a movie that doesn't even explain why they're on Saturn with these worms, I mean, this, even when you go to the first one.
Hold on. I just remembered another thing. Speaking of Saturn, dear God, the fan service in that moment where Lydia and Astrid end up on Saturn, and they land on the sand. Astrid looks to her left and goes, "That's Saturn. We must be on one of its moons." Get the fuck out of here that you deduced that shit while you're in the afterlife doing all this other shit. Like, what is happening here besides the fact that you just need to acknowledge that you're on the moon of Saturn for fans to be like, oh, okay, I know what's going to happen. Get out of here with that. That's not even expositional bullshit. That is just lazy writing where they're like, we need a sandworm moment. Okay, we're going to do this. Please continue, Justin.
I will still go on the defense. Thank you, Josh. But here's the deal. Like I said earlier, it's a cartoon, and we look at movies on the intent. Like I said earlier, was this a Tim Burton movie? Absolutely not. Tim Burton is up front and center on what kind of movie you're going to get. Tell me one movie that you can't look at that you say, this is going to be a Tim Burton movie when it comes to style and storytelling, because this isn't it. And even with Alex saying this was inspiration from a musical, entertainment, this is from the cartoon. You even get that question from the cartoon, is Beetlejuice and Lydia dating, or are they just friends? That's my biggest frustration with the cartoon, because they even have an episode about their anniversary and they still don't define them dating or being friends. There's questions in the cartoon, there's questions in the musical. This is a movie that doesn't care. This is a fan service that went for the fun factor with the focal point of Beetlejuice. Now, he doesn't steal the show, but he does have a more prominent role with more prominent gags. And this is what people wanted. People aren't going to go see this movie because of Lydia. They're not going to go see this movie because of any proper storytelling, because even the first movie didn't really have good storytelling. And I just got into this discussion with Antonio because the movie's climax is so rushed and so sped through, it doesn't really solve anything. It happens in the snap of a finger. So there's faults that even people in the 80s had with the original on the pacing, on the storytelling. We get that here. But this goes at it with a more colorful aspect to really not necessarily, I don't even want to say give it fan service, because to me, I'm a huge Beetlejuice fan, and I didn't think this was speaking to me as a Beetlejuice fan, but it did speak to me as entertainment, because there was only one moment in this movie that I thought I was bored, and that was with the relationship and the conversation before Astrid goes into the afterlife. I thought it just felt just drug out. Now, all the subplots and all that is too much. I will be upfront and honest on that. It was too much. If they would have focused on just one linear motion with these characters, and that's with Lydia and the dead, handsome Twilight boy, then I think that could have had some intrigue. And that could have really brought these characters together. But again, they go too far into it. And I will put that out there, that's the flaw with it. It tries to add those cutesy, marketable characters between Bob and baby Beetlejuice that look good on a popcorn bucket or look good on a drink and look good in NECA coming out in figurines. So they try too hard for the marketing aspect of it. And that's what did drive me crazy, even though I did actually like Bob. Not so much baby Beetlejuice.
Baby Beetlejuice was the worst.
That was unnecessary and it just went on too long. But again, it's a cartoon, it's silly, and it doesn't make sense because nothing in Beetlejuice makes sense. Even in death, nothing makes sense. You will always ask the question of why when it comes to death. And that's one thing that I think the writers here do get is we can be as stupid as we want because nobody knows what death is. Nobody knows how to tackle the conversation of death. And who knows, maybe somebody gave them psychic readings when they were on Saturn to say, this is Saturn. We don't know because the movie has stupid concepts from the first movie to this movie, but that's what makes it interesting to the extent of the pure cinematic silliness of it.
I did have a thought when the movie, once we got through the Monica Bellucci stuff and Beetlejuice is like, I got to get in touch with Lydia. I was like, okay, we're going to do the animated series thing. This is going to be just a wacky adventure with the two of them. None of that happens. Like if there is a wacky adventure, they separate almost immediately after they go into the afterlife. Nothing that you think is going to happen in this movie really happens besides some of the more obvious tropes. Like Alex talked about, his wife and his best friend, they called dead Twilight boy pretty quickly, which again, I kind of skipped over it because, I just thought, okay, something's off with him, but I think I gave the movie too much credit with the book. I was like, okay, Otho, because I'm thinking in terms of other legacy sequels, like, oh, it's an Easter egg. It's not a hint. So with this one, I do think maybe I gave myself a little too much credit. Like, I'm smarter than this movie. There are memorable moments in this movie, but it's not in the same sense of the first movie where you're like, oh, that was fun. It's more just like, oh, that was something. I haven't seen that before. Like when Monica Bellucci's character first gets unleashed and she sallies herself back together with the staple gun. The sequence makes no sense because like
takes too long too.
Her one arm is able to move around on its own and like leverage itself, but her main torso can't.
Listen, Monica Bellucci is very hot. It was an excuse to show us putting her together.
And she's in the movie for 45 seconds.
Monica Bellucci is very hot. We need to show her slowly putting herself back together for the benefit of the audience, okay? That's fan service. You watch anime, you know what fan service is, Josh.
This is where the bartender cuts you off, Alex.
No, okay, so I have one more question for you guys that this part pissed me off so much. This is the whole refrigerator moment.
Was it the movie?
No. Yes. This is the refrigerator moment. A refrigerator moment is the TV trope of it makes sense in the movie until you get to the refrigerator and you're like doing something else and all of a sudden pops into your head and you go, wait a second. So the Matlins have passed on to a different version of the afterlife. Lydia says she read the book and found a loophole. Why does Charles Dietz and Delilah Dietz just get to move on immediately to the afterlife through the Soul Train without a fucking loophole?
We don't know what the loophole is.
Then how do they find it? How do they find it? Why can't they just go to the Soul Train?
This is the beauty of talking about death because there might be a limit. They have to be there for a year. I'm creating. Let me make my movie. So
no.
So you have to have those nuggets in, just like how we get Jeffrey Jones walking around death with half a body and he's still able to talk.
I love that so much because it's the because what they do is I can tell the inspiration for that must be Mike the Headless Chicken. You guys know about Mike the Headless Chicken, right?
I do
Mike
not.
the Headless Chicken. No. It was a thing in the 1930s or 1940s in which a guy went to behead his chicken, but his wife said she really likes the neck. So he cut as high as possible on it, cut the chicken, the chicken's head off, walked away, the whole run around like a headless chicken kind of thing, because if you cut, depending on where you cut, the chicken's still briefly alive. Comes back, the chicken is doing chicken shit, like eating, trying to eat and peck and other stuff. So what happened is he cut so high on the neck that he left part of the nervous system still together, so the chicken would still do chicken stuff. And the way he kept it alive was he would feed it with an eyedropper through its neck hole. And I'm not bullshitting you. This is completely real. This is a real thing. He took it on tour for like 18 months, and eventually the chicken actually ended up choking to death because, feeding it through an eyedropper. Anyways, that reminded me of that because he's walking around with just part of a torso, and he's speaking through the neck hole that's just kind of flopping, spewing blood everywhere. I'm like,
I have more questions than I did with Beetlejuice on the story you just told.
You can ask my wife. She's the one who told me about Mike the Headless Chicken.
So what's the refrigerator question?
The refrigerator question is, what loophole was used? Why didn't they just walk to the frickin' Soul Train? It's right there. Charles and Delia get on it without some loophole. They just stumble upon it. Why does the Matlins need a loophole to get on the Soul Train to the afterlife?
They
Alex,
had...
Go ahead, Justin. I've got snark. You have an actual answer.
No, I don't. There's no actual answer to this stupid thing. So obviously there's been stricter immigration policy. So they have to have passports now. They have to get it stamped. So, I mean, I don't know. So obviously in the last 30 years, there's been some policy changes in the afterlife. So we just don't know who's running the joint. So
your snark was better than mine. I'm glad I let you go. I'm just not even going to go now.
Justin, just as Willem Dafoe would say, thank you for keeping it real. God damn it. The fourth time I heard that goddamn things, guys, we got to keep it real. With a coffee cup being handed to him, I'm like, motherfucker, shut up.
I liked that gag where every time he was on screen or he had something to say, he had his assistant come in with a cup of coffee to hand it to him so he could dramatically do something with it. I like that bit.
Yeah, that was a good joke.
Well, and I think that should lead us into something that I think if I were to peg, I keep saying biggest annoyance, but then I keep topping my biggest annoyance, the lip syncing. And this is where I do think it's a filmmaker's problem. And you guys tell me if this didn't bug you. The lip syncing in Deo from the original film, it felt okay. This one with the new digital format, high definition, the lip syncing was just absolutely terrible. And to me, it was distracting. Not only that, but it was with horrible music and choreography that watching it, I wasn't a fan of. Walking out of the movie was stuck in my head. But that to me, I don't think was really, they didn't really strategize on how they were going to make this work that other movies with this kind of concept has in the last, I'd say, decade.
The musical choices were definitely uninspired, in my opinion. They did not resonate the same way as Deo or Jump in the Line. Banana Boat song, technically speaking, just for those that I know are going to want to say something. And honestly, I have never heard the song that they do during the wedding. I've only known it through the Weird Al Jurassic Park song.
Which I was singing along with the Jurassic Park version.
Yeah, I was like, Jurassic Park is frightening in the dark. That's all I know of that song. I know it's a real song, but I did not know what the lyrics were. The lip syncing, I honestly think they could have just done without it and actually tried to tell an actual story instead of just doing like, oh, people are going to expect a Deo sequence. Well, what are we going to do? We don't want to do Harry Belafonte again. What can we do? I think like Conte Partio would have been interesting. Like if you're going to do something like more operatic, like maybe something like that where you can just go bizarre while you sort of like what is it, Old School, when you have Will Ferrell singing Dust in the Wind. Like you can be macabre, and like that's Tim Burton's bread and butter is the macabre, where you can just do something completely bizarre while singing something so like sorrowful and beautiful. But they just went with let's go obscure. Let's try and dig into like the what's his name, Tim Gunn. I'm forgetting his name. the Guardians of the Galaxy director.
Yeah.
I know it's Gunn. I can't remember. Yeah. But like they went too niche, I think. And again, the choreography was not interesting. The moment didn't need it. Nothing about that moment made any sense narratively. It was strictly for we need a Deo moment now, and this is the only opportunity we have left because the movie's over.
I think the Deo moment was done very wonderfully because Charles loved that and found it hysterical. It was fantastic, So that they're singing at his funeral, fine, great. Now that song is called MacArthur Park, I believe. My problem is if you're gonna do it, literally an entire goddamn song like that, and seems like a long song. I don't know if it's a 3, 5, 12 minute. I don't know. My problem is if it doesn't really because of the lip syncing, that bothers me because it is just obviously Easter eggs, throwback, whatever you want to call it, nostalgia from the first movie. Beetlejuice being able to possess and make people say things. At his own wedding, sure, but the first movie, he had agency during that wedding. He was trying to shut everybody up so he can get through it. This one, he should still have agency during this movie because he knows his ex-wife is chasing him. He knows she's coming for him. He knows these things are happening. He knows he's violated code 699 or whatever the hell that code was. So it seems just kind of an extravagant waste of time. And honestly, if you're going to play an entire damn long song like that, you have to make sure it tops Thomas Crown Affair's Sinner Man with Nina Simone. That song, that movie, that end sequence with the moving parts, the editing, the beauty of it is so perfect that anytime someone plays a song for a reference and seems to interact with it for more than a minute long, I'm like, you are comparing yourself to Nina Simone and you better bring it. And they didn't bring it. And I got bored, especially the third or fourth time when they cut to Willem Dafoe's obvious stand-in wax model. And I'm like, why couldn't you just ask Willem Dafoe to stand still for 10 seconds? He's frozen, and then you have Bern Gorman kind of looking at it, and I'm like, this is not Willem Dafoe. This is obviously a prop, and the prop does not look that good because Willem Dafoe's face is so distinct. Those lines, the angular, the facial expressions, the age that he has now, because I think he's got to be almost 70 by now, to have that prop that looks good in passing, but when you linger on it with a moving actor just behind him, especially when you have Bern Gorman, who like Willem Dafoe, has a very distinct, angular, tight face, it doesn't work. And that bothered me because I'm like, wax model, wax model, wax model. Oh, they're unfrozen. Side note, this is really stupid and bothered me, but I have to point it out. That same sequence at the end of the wedding where Willem Dafoe finishes, becomes unfrozen and tells Catherine O'Hara, yeah, we're going to the underworld. They walk off to the window right behind them. They don't exit out the front doors, and they don't have like a sound effect of them crawling out the window. I noticed that, and I was like, and then they cut to a wide view, like right as they're walking to the window. I'm like, they're supposed to be crawling out the window really awkwardly right now. Where the hell did they go?
I will say that you can tell that especially the music number at the end is a success when you see the most entertaining piece of it is the Danny Elfman, William Dafoe theme where he's charging the church in that 80s kind of. I wanted more of that because I was hoping for more cutscenes.
That's part of the song because there's that interlude in the song.
Oh, that's true.
Like that's an interlude in the song. So like that's not even Danny Elfman. Like that. I thought
true.
that was well done where they use that part of the song to introduce this like cheesy action sequence into it, which again maybe compliment number 2. Maybe I'll get to a third one, but overall, yeah, I none of that worked for me. And the resolution, the minute we get into the church, like it all just falls apart so quickly because they're just like, the movie needs to end now, like we're done. So Monica Bellucci's character is now there. She's killed like 15 people on screen, sucked their souls, and she needs to marry Beetlejuice. Is she going to be resurrected, or is it just revenge? Like, I don't even know. I can't even remember what her drive is for finding Beetlejuice. Her story is over so quickly. And like Alex said, Beetlejuice has no agency. There's nothing. We don't even know like what marrying Lydia does to Monica Bellucci's character. If he marries Lydia before she shows up, like, does she die? Does she no longer have a vendetta? Like she forgets, like what what is the consequence or what is the benefit to him marrying Lydia against what happens with Monica Bellucci? Because that's something, again, that you could create intrigue with, where he's trying to rush the ceremony, she's trying to delay it. They both have agency to make sure one thing happens compared to the other, whereas the minute she shows up, it's almost like Lydia is completely forgotten, because we now have to focus on letting Michael Keaton and Monica Bellucci have a moment together, and then just quickly getting rid of Monica Bellucci and Justin Theroux.
That's the same issue I had with the first movie that we talked about on Back to the Balcony, is we have these quick fixes where I think the last act goes way too quick, and I think it almost amplifies here. And I kind of, even though I can blame the writers, it just screams Tim Burton on how he wants to just get through this movie. That is a missed element here, because I think when we get to the point where Beetlejuice sends Twilight Dead Boy to hell, which I thought was a pretty funny moment, there's some redemption there. And I think there would have been some open potential to kind of tease the audience as something more. And I think Beetlejuice's fate ended way too quickly, and it was very brief. And it felt like there could have been a good redemption or good moment between Lydia and Beetlejuice, even though he's the demon, he's a trickster. But they had some pretty good scenes of trust, and I thought that's where they were going to go with the movie, and it just ended up being the same thing of what I had the same issue with the first movie, is it just was too quick to end itself. But to your point, Josh, there was too many elements going into it to really have a satisfactory ending, where there's way too much going on to really have that moment compared to the first one, if I would say.
And I don't know if I should thank you for reminding me, but you did remind me that Twilight Boy, who's trying to become alive again by tricking Jenna Ortega's Astrid, one of my biggest problems with the resolution to that moment is it happened so quickly. Like, the whole reason they're in the afterlife is they need to save Jenna Ortega, which I think that is a more interesting movie. Instead of doing an hour and 10 minutes in the real world, and then doing the last 30 of the last 40 minutes or 20 minutes in the afterlife, and then capping off the final 15 minutes back in the real world, I think you make half the movie in the afterlife, where Jenna Ortega's like, I'm lost, I'm not supposed to be here, and she's been tricked. I think you can do some stuff with that. Like, maybe if any of the I Have Some Notes guys are out there, we can collaborate on an episode there. The resolution to Twilight Boy's comeuppance and getting sent to hell by Beetlejuice, which is your one F-bomb in the movie, by the way, which then they bleep another one, which, like, stupid. When Jenna Ortega has her soul taken, or her life force taken and given to Twilight Boy, she's like, oh, I feel weird. Like, what happened? She gets her picture taken and her soul is taken, I guess, or something. And then once they get rid of Twilight Boy, it's just like, done. Okay, moving on. Like, there's no moment of her, like, stopping and, like, feeling like herself again, like something new is happening, or she's back. It's just like, okay, he's gone, she's good, let's move on. And that's another thing that makes no sense in the narrative storytelling of this. Like, why does she feel bad when her soul is taken, or her life is taken, but there's no reaction when her life is given back to her, or there's no, like, punchline of the bureaucracy of everything, where, like, oh, here's your soul back, and she's like, yay, and let's move on. Like, oh, my soul was just on this piece of paper. Like, there's nothing like that. And that's my problem. Like, from that moment on, every plot point that gets resolved is just like a quick little, like, with no real confirmation. Like, oh, Beetlejuice, we say Beetlejuice 3 times and now he's gone. Monica Bellucci and Justin Theroux have been eaten by sandworms, because we teased that and we can't not have the sandworms come back. That's the resolution in the first movie, so that's the resolution in this one. And we got to do that. Nothing feels earned, and nothing feels like it was narratively it made sense or tied together in any way. Like when I said earlier, everything just feels very shallow. Like they just had the concept and they built something around it, but none of it made sense or flowed with what they wanted to do.
You know who would have been great for the bureaucracy part? Tap in Terry Gilliam, do some Brazil. The bureaucracy of that movie with the underworld would have been perfect, because that you're right. You're 100% right. he tricks her into saying the Latin verses for the soul switch, but it's not actually works until they get in line and go through passport control. They get the photo taken, then it happens, but it doesn't become permanent until they go to immigration and then they get the immigration paper signed. Now, that resolve of him with the F-bomb, I chuckle because I'm like, yeah, that works. That's fine. That's good. But you're right. There should have been like a lost and found or a separate line for her then to officially get her soul back through another thing where she takes a number and all that crap. That would have been great. You know, Terry Gilliam is watching this going like, I could have done this so much better. This would have been great. He's like, you want bureaucracy of the underworld? You give me 25 minutes. I will give you 48 minutes of this movie that has nothing but pure government vitriol of how this shit should be working, and it will be great. And you know what? We're going to make the Soul Train even better. We're going to put some Time Bandit shit in this, and it's going to be great.
So, and I think this is one of those that you really, it depends on the expectation that you set. Because, again, we talk about the intent. The intent to me, I got different. I didn't go into this movie like most summer movies, right? To really think. But even with big blockbusters and sequels that we've seen here, the intent is never clear. Here, it is pretty intentional how stupidly silly and how holy this movie is when it comes to a lot of these questions. But when it comes, especially to, you point out the F-bomb, and I thought that was actually clever since you're allowed one F-bomb in a PG-13 movie, and to kind of go around it with a censor, I thought that was kind of clever just to amplify it.
I think they needed to play off the church with that one, because he said the second one is set in the church, and that's a whole plot point as well. Like, he does the sign of the cross and he starts himself on fire, or maybe like that's an actual thing since he's supposed to be a demon. But I think there's something that you could do where he's like on holy ground, and you can make jokes about that, where like maybe he's like slowly incinerating or immolating because he's on holy ground. He's like, I need this to be quick. Let's go. I think there's something you could have done there. So like he can't swear on holy ground as well. Like there's a joke you can make there, but they were like, let's just do a bleep and put it in the trailer.
Yeah, I can see that. And I think Beetlejuice is one that I think everybody can just say, this one is childhood. This one is great. It holds dear to my heart. There will never be anything that will ever touch the original. So going into this movie for me is, if I can walk out and just say, I had a good time, then it did its job, because I didn't walk out wanting anything explained. I didn't need a backstory that they attempt to do Beetlejuice in this one. I could care less. I don't care where the deetses are. I wanted to see Beetlejuice, and I wanted to see some crude humor, and I really, to an extent, I was disappointed, but I was satisfied. When it comes to summer movies, I think this is the one that at least was the most clear when it comes to sequel, with the exception of a couple that really did want the fun factor to be there, and they didn't care about how many holes it had. So to me, there's a level of respect for it, even though I agree with both of you on the stupidity of a lot of these near misses, because there is so many obvious parts of this that it could have gone in multiple directions, and it's frustrating, but nobody's going to get the movie that they want when it comes to this material.
Well, I didn't even want this fucking movie, so, you know.
No, like I said, I had fun. I enjoyed Michael Keaton. When the first time they did the voiceover thing with him telling this backstory in Italian, that was funny. It was cute. It was kind of like, it was very jokey, you know. The way his powers work, where he calls up a microphone and then slips into apparently he was an Italian guy. I like that. That was fun. I enjoyed Willem Dafoe's kind of hard-boiled detective. The ongoing gag with crushing the cup or whatever, and there's a pile of them. That was fun. Him trying to look for them. That was fun. Michael Keaton was obviously having fun doing his old shtick. Was he in the entire movie? No. Should he be in the entire movie? God, no. You have that problem when you talk about the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. When you have a character who is the star, but when you focus on too long on them, the shtick gets old. There you go. Now, I liked some of the other stuff he did. I liked Bob. Bob was adorable. I liked the snarky waiting for death lady with the little pinstripe suit, that being snarky with people. They brought that back from the first one. It was all fun. There was a ton of fun in this movie. However, it does not hold up to near as much scrutiny as the first one does. And that is my problem. There are some obvious thoughts and plot points that I honestly believe there was about 20 minutes of this movie that they cut out to explain, like, what is it why does she have soul sucking powers? How many of these creatures existed before, like Monica Bellucci's character, that can kill the undead so they're dead, not just dead, but dead. What the hell is the soul train? There's things that they just obviously exercise to cut to a brisk runtime. And that is the problem that I have, is that Lord knows how many times the script was touched. Because back in the day, they joked about Beetlejuice goes Hawaiian, or Beetlejuice goes to the tropics, or something like that. So this script is floating around a lot. Even back in, I think it was 2021 or 2022, Tim Burton said, I don't know what they're doing with that. I want nothing to do with it. And then, like, 3 days later, I'm doing the movie. He was signed to it.
I think Dumbo flopped pretty hard.
Yeah.
He's like, this is the only movie they'll let me make now.
Now, one of the things that I love the most about this is I enjoy the practical effects. You can tell that things were shot in camera. They were really sticking to that. I believe the character's name is Richard, which is Astrid's dad, Winona Ryder's husband, whatever.
Deceased husband, ex-husband, boyfriend, whatever he is.
Yeah, he died in the Amazon, apparently eaten to death by piranhas, and those little flapping piranhas on his suit and neck, constantly twitching and flapping anytime he's on
Does that
screen.
mean those piranhas died with him? Like
yes,
they got
apparently.
stuck in him?
Apparently. I mean, I enjoyed that. That made me laugh. Anytime they're on screen, I'm just like, I appreciate that. I was like, this is great. I love it. When Delia dies from being a dumbass, and she's like trying to protest, so she ends up, of course, on the couch, and the guy in the box, who apparently was some kind of magician, contortionist, died while doing like an underwater lockbox trick, so only his hand was stuck out, and he was like pointing, like hits his glass and points to the desk, and she needs to take a number. That kind of shit just gets me on like on a level that I'm just like, I love this crap. This is so bizarre. I don't know what the hell is going on here. I don't know why this exists. That the Soul Train is literally a soul train from like the 1970s. Like, which did I have the questions like, was Soul Train inspired by Soul Train, or was the Soul Train the inspiration for Soul?
It's like one of those questions too of how the guy in the tank even walked into that office, and I hated the Soul Train aspect to it, but at the same time, I couldn't stop watching it because the music was contagious.
Yeah, I mean, this weird shit that doesn't. I mean, I love crap like that. It's hard. That's the thing is, like I said, in the non-spoiler part, did this destroy my childhood and drag it through the coals? Like, I don't know, Indiana Jones 4 and 5 did. No. Is this gonna? Am I gonna rewatch this a lot? No. Might I rewatch a few sequences, just kind of fast forward anytime Michael Keaton's on screen? Probably. I'll probably will. And Catherine O'Hara's it's shtick with how she's trying to grieve. That's funny. I mean, but other than that, just my problems are when characters don't know how to talk to each other, when there's people who have obvious answers right there. And that poor Lydia was given such a disservice. That's my problem. That's the part that bothers me. Is that if they had respected Winona Ryder's character and not made her this manipulated pill addict, weak-willed person, but they actually made her like, no, this is her job. She's exploiting her talent. This is how she treats it. That would have been better. And cut out Monica Bellucci and Willem Dafoe. Like I said, had fun.
You guys had more fun than I did. I swear I went into this with an open mind. I saw the Rotten Tomato scores at like 78%. So I'm like, okay, this is something that people are at least saying is like a worthwhile sequel. Let's see what it is. Everything about the living sequences just dragged for me. They were not interesting. I did not care. And anything with Beetlejuice, again, never felt extraordinarily like it was quippy, but it never felt fun. Like, I don't know what it really was. Like the shrunken head guys were more fun than Beetlejuice was in this for me. There were moments, but even we were talking about the one F-bomb in the movie from earlier, and I know he said the F-bomb, but I don't remember what the F-bomb even was about. Like, do you say like sorry fucker or something like that?
Dostoevsky says you're fucked.
Oh,
because the guy loved Dostoevsky.
oh, okay. That went over my head, but like, one of the things that once you get into the sequences where they're in the afterlife, the eternity, whatever you want to call it, they never let anything linger. Like, it's just breakneck speeds. The movie does not take a breath until the very end of the movie. But even then, like, the resolution to everything is just like, okay, on to the next thing. Like I said earlier, like we deal with Justin Theroux and Monica Bellucci, and then the next thing is Beetlejuice. He's like, all right, let's get married. And then Jenna Ortega is just like, oh, by the way, I read the entire chapter 699. You forged this document, and it's not null and void. And then problem solved. Beetlejuice movie over. It just, nothing felt like it was intended to be there longer than maybe be a punchline or just be like, okay, movie over, time to go. It just, I don't know. There was nothing satisfactory about it. And there was nothing, like I said, there's nothing memorable for me out of this. So that part of the reason why I said it was a pass is there's no memorable sequences. There's nothing really that stands out in terms of acting or performances. Everything that was notable about the character of Beetlejuice happened 30 years ago. So with that upbeat note by me, we're going to call it a night here. Justin, please refresh everyone one more time about who you are and where they can find you on social media, as well as on their favorite podcatchers.
And yeah, I'm the host of The Movie Wire. You can find me anywhere you listen to podcasts and all the socials at Movie Wire Show. You can also check out The Movie Wire in the Cultworthy Cinema podcast new show, Back to the Balcony, that's available on YouTube right now.
And I will be on or have been on an episode that has just recently been released or will soon be released. I don't know where it's at in the pecking order right now. But Alex, please let everyone know about our Discord.
Children, there used to be something called AIM. Before that was something called ICQ. You had Yahoo Messenger. Well, Discord is the big boy, the new guy. It's the way to interact, the way to meet us, the way to contact, the way to embrace and be embraced by your favorite creators. And we have one. You can reach us at tsmackpod@gmail.com. You can join it. We're not blocking you. Come join it. Come see our content. Come and talk to us. Tag us. Drag us into there. Ask us anything you want to know, like how far along is Josh in his Winter Soldier costume. Things like that. Join our Discord.
I'm waiting for my Kickstarter to actually receive donations. So you can find a link to our Discord in our episode description as well. You can follow us on all the social media platforms at Talking Smack Pod on Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads, Hive Social, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and Lonnie's website. Email us your thoughts, reviews, questions, anything you might have on your mind about the podcast. Email us at tsmackpod@gmail.com. Thank you to Leo Allen for our musical themes, Beppo for our original avatars, Retro Ale Studios for our Ricky avatar. Alex, who's doing the remix?
Danny Elfman, because you couldn't fucking tell if
Oh,
you did
no wonder
or not.
nothing has changed. Okay. Please like, subscribe, rate, review on your podcatcher of choice. And most importantly, everyone, thank you for listening. Justin, Alex, thank you also for being here. And everyone, please take care. We will see you next week. Justin, you know what to do.
Watch Star Trek. Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice.
Hey, come on. Hey, where'd you go? Oh, hey, come on. You gotta work with me here. I'm just trying to cut a deal. What do you want me to do? Where are you? You bunch of losers! You're working with a professional here! Nice fucking models!